Plaintiffs Rosa and James Harris are suing their former roommate, Isaiah Robbins, for a lease termination fee, and they accuse him of assaulting a mentally challenged coworker and hosting underage drinking parties. Isaiah says living with Rosa was like having a second mother, and he shouldn't be responsible for the entire termination fee.
Why don't you tell me how it is that you ended up bringing in Isaiah?
Yes, Judge. I met my husband in February of 2007, and we ended up both needing roommates at the time. So he actually knew Isaiah, who was a family friend of theirs for about 10 years. And so we decided that we'd move into a 3-bedroom apartment together and everything would be fine. Before moving in, I spoke with Isaiah. I said, here are kind of the rules and the ground rules. We have pets. I don't want a lot of in and out, no partying, don't smoke in my house. Please pay your bills on time.
What is the agreement regarding the lease? What is he going to pay?
He had to pay about $450 a month.
Did you have anything in writing?
Yes, we have a lease signed with the apartment complex.
Okay, all 3 of you on the lease?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you broke it down in thirds, is that the deal?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, is that your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
You signed the lease? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and then in about just shortly after we moved in, things just started occurring. There were people over at all times of night, and we both work full time, and people were drinking in our house, and there's a lot of underage drinking going on, and I'm solely...
By whom?
By Isaiah and his company.
How old are you? 20.
Why are you drinking?
It's just something to do.
Well, why don't you watch television?
Plaintiffs Rosa and James Harris are suing their former roommate, Isaiah Robbins, for a lease termination fee.
Where are you buying the booze?
Actually, James was buying it for me.
How old are you?
21, or 22 at this time.
22 today?
Yes, ma'am.
How old were you when you were buying the booze for Isaiah?
I was 21, but I never bought booze for Isaiah.
Okay.
No, he bought me beer on several occasions.
Judge, we purchased alcohol for our consumption.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay.
And obviously it's in a community refrigerator.
Wait, I get all that.
Okay.
All right, so you're saying that you're not happy with him because he's got a lot of young kids coming in and drinking.
Right.
So why didn't you throw him out?
Oh, I confronted Isaiah several times, and I'm sure he'll agree to that. I was
Did
like,
she?
Yes, ma'am.
What'd she say?
She just didn't like all the people in her house. And when she says a lot of people, I'd have like 1 or 2 friends over.
All right.
Judge, 1 or 2 friends that were falling asleep on my couch, per se. One day I came in from work. I came in over lunch. I came in to take my dog out. And lo and behold, there's a guy laying on my couch. Never seen him in my whole entire life.
That happens.
And I'm like, okay. And I asked Isaiah, what's this guy doing here? He's like, we couldn't get him to go home.
Okay. All right. So you're disagreeing already. It's not surprising. You got 3 people living in one apartment. They start disagreeing. What a shock. And, it starts to wear thin.
Right. And he was also smoking inside.
Which he wasn't supposed to do, because you said that right at the get-go. You still smoking?
No.
Don't lie to me. No? Okay, go ahead. What else is he doing that's aggravating
lo and behold,
you?
I find out just several different things, during the whole entire time he's living with us. He got kicked out of college for shooting an air gun at somebody. It was just a complete nightmare. He wasn't clean. We have pets. We had a cat.
So you're not getting along. What are you going to do now?
Well, I talked to him and I left I put a sign, for example, like in front of our sink, like, please clean your dishes when you leave it. Because what would happen is I would come home and there'd be like dishes.
Don't you hate that?
It's frustrating because I work all day and then I got to come home and clean dishes. So, that was
Wait till you have kids.
That's different, though. That's my offspring. I'd be more than willing to clean their dishes.
Yeah? You're my age and your kids come home from college and they leave dirty dishes in the sink. It doesn't matter that they're your offspring. You're still angry. All right.
At one point, I walked in to do the dishes of our dishes that I was going to do, and there was a jar, like one of those containers you get at Applebee's, full of mayonnaise and cigarette butts. So I confronted Isaiah. I said, are you smoking in my house? So I'm like...
All right, so he's being bad. He's been drinking, he's smoking, he's bringing friends over. He's being a 20-year-old, okay?
Your Honor, I have pictures of cigarettes
let's see the pictures
in the windowsill.
What do you want to tell me, Isaiah?
We had a roommate come live with us. He was the one smoking in the apartment.
Well, is this a windowsill? What am I looking at?
That's a windowsill.
Yeah. Looks like a menthol. Is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, yeah.
So he wasn't smoking, but it was a menthol cigarette. I don't know what a cigarette, I know what a cigarette looks like, but I don't know what a menthol looks like.
What next?
We went on vacation, and we came back, And we were on vacation for a week, and I get my cable bill, and I'm reviewing my cable bill, and I'm like, why is this so expensive? And James takes a look at it, and he's like, because a porn was purchased. And I'm like, let me see the date on that. So I'm looking at it, I think it's like August 25th, and I'm like, weren't we out of town that week? So I just recollected, I'm like, we're out of town. So I brought it to Isaiah's attention. I said, hey, did you purchase this? I think James and I both. And he's like, no. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Okay, so he didn't purchase it, but he agreed to pay for it. So
smart.
In turn, we went ahead and just put a parental lock on the little cable box. So that way nobody could purchase anything that was an adult film. That's $15.99, $19.99, whatever. So prior to all this, we're trying to help Isaiah out, find him a job, and my husband at the time, or now, gets Isaiah a job.
I got him a job at the fast food restaurant I was working at. He worked there for about a month or two. In that time frame, we had a mentally challenged employee working for us that Isaiah started taunting, calling him homosexual and gay.
Did you do that?
James.
Did you?
Oh.
Is that yes or no?
Yes,
Stop with the
ma'am.
oh my God.
I did.
Did
but
you?
James did it just as much as I did, if not more.
Okay.
He was throwing flour at the kids.
So Isaiah, they started pushing each other. Once the employee confronted Isaiah about it, started pushing each other.
There was never any pushing.
What was wrong with this person?
I'm not quite sure. I know he had seizures and he had some problems. We never got into it when we hired him. It was just
what
one
did
of
you hire him for?
He had an involuntary
to work to help us out. I worked at fast food.
What fast food?
Little Caesar's Pizza.
Okay, and what's your position there?
At that point, I was co-manager.
And what's Isaiah's position?
Just a regular shift member.
Okay, and the kid that you guys are pushing around?
Just someone to help out, just a shift member also.
And he's throwing flour at him?
Everything. We had, toppings of food and everything. So they get into like a little push-shove fight.
You're disgusting. And you're disgusting. Both of you.
Defendant Isaiah Robbins says living with Rosa was like having a second mother, and he shouldn't be responsible for the entire termination fee.
All right, you don't take in people who are challenged or handicapped or in any way disadvantaged and abuse them.
Yes,
that is the lowest of the low. Shame on you. Go ahead.
So they end up getting in a headlock, and Isaiah is fired
There
because
was never any...
Stop, I'm talking to
So
him.
Isaiah is fired because of that. And on top of that job, that was the third to fourth job he lost in the brief time span that we lived
Yeah, well,
together.
you know what? You shouldn't be so proud of yourself because as far as I'm concerned, you were the co-manager and you were just as responsible.
Right.
All right, he lost the job, but you're the one in charge.
Which is why we stopped it. He was fired because of it. I've never once admitted to doing what he said.
I bet you didn't admit. You're smarter than that. But I'm not impressed. Okay, you know what? Let's focus on this lawsuit. So he starts pushing around this disadvantaged person and you fire him.
My general manager of the
Yeah, you didn't fire him. You didn't because you were involved in it.
No, I didn't. I don't have the authority to fire.
You're a co-manager. What are you talking about? You see someone being abused in the workplace, you take care of it right then and there. And I hope it didn't go on very long. All right, Isaiah, what's your version of all of this? Do you owe him money?
I do not owe them the $5,500. We all broke the lease. Every month, we each had to pay a third of the rent. We each had to pay a third of the electric, a third of everything. And suddenly the bill comes in for breaking the lease, and I'm supposed to pay all of it.
Who moved out first?
Isaiah.
Isaiah moves out. Does he tell you he's going to move out?
No, ma'am.
What are the circumstances of your moving, Isaiah?
I talked to James. I told him I had an insurance thing I had to pay. It completely drained my bank account. You couldn't
afford it anymore?
I couldn't afford the apartment anymore.
All right. Now, how long was the lease good for?
It was a 12-month lease.
It's a 12-month lease. After how many months did you move out?
9.
And you move out in February
2nd.
So March, April, May. So we're shy 3 months. Okay. He moves out 3 months before the lease is ending. Now, do you guys move out?
Well, what happens is I go and talk to the leasing agent. I'm like, we're kind of just trying to figure out what happened because there's nothing left in this apartment besides my stuff and James' stuff.
The agent gave us 2 options.
Okay.
Since we're in a 3-bedroom, we're only allowed to downgrade one to a 2-bedroom. We'd have to sign another year lease, which at this time we were looking at houses. We'd have to pay another pet deposit, another move-in deposit, and a transfer fee. So we were looking at about $1,200 that we had to pay them that day to transfer. Well, I can't just come up with $1,200 that day when we already had paid our bills for the month, not knowing this was going to happen. Or she said, we will have to evict you. You can move out now. We have a lease termination fee, a breakdown of what the charges are for.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She told us she would give us that, and we asked her what our options were. She said, you can pay this, you have 30 days, or we'll go to debt collection.
So you are suing the defendant for the maximum allowed in small claims, which is $5,000.
Right.
Because
the total is $5,657.
We were actually
see that.
planning, we would have fulfilled our lease, and then we were looking to close on a house.
Okay.
So our plan wasn't to move out until she told us we needed $1,200.
Well, how do you feel about the fact that they're looking to get $5,000 from you? Actually, they want lease termination, $5,600.
It's ridiculous.
What do you think you owe them?
About $1,800.
How do you figure that out?
It's about a third of what the full cost was. I offered them $2,000, but they didn't take it. They still wanted
Your
to
Honor.
pay for it.
Stop it, I'm talking to him. When did you offer them $2,000?
About a month ago.
How did you offer? How did you make that offer?
Yeah, I was over text messaging, so I didn't really receive a reply.
You didn't get a response? Did you get a text from him?
Yes, ma'am.
did
Saying
it
exactly what he said.
2,000?
18 to 2,000, yes.
Is that what you're willing to pay?
Yes, ma'am.
1,800? All right.
That's why
The issue for this court right now is whether or not the defendant is responsible for the lease and lease termination fees. The defendant signed a contract with both plaintiffs, and they agreed that the cost of the lease would be a third, a third, and a third. The defendant, for a period of 9 months, paid his rent, albeit late, but he paid his rent. Now, the fact that the defendant made the decision to move out, it certainly puts them in a position where they can't afford the lease. Therefore, this verdict today is on behalf of the plaintiff for the amount that the defendant has already offered of $1,800. Verdict for the plaintiff. Thank you.